top of it, we are talking today about intelligence. So once you have dealt with all this, we go ahead with intelligence. The idea in this episode is also to discover, how intelligence can help with some of these problem statements for us practically. So the first thing that Shashank I wanted to know in this conversation is I wanted to take up the outside in perspective. When I say outside in is with respect to AI particularly for our software supply chains. As of today, there are many tools that have started offering AI, like we call them AI powered tools, particularly in the area of SAST or DAST or other tools which we generally help to automate security in the pipelines, right? Um, what about these teams that are planning to use these AI powered tools? How do you suggest they go about it? Like, is there a right or a wrong way of doing it, or they should look for any specific parameters, features, capabilities in these tools when they are planning to adopt AI powered security tools?
So yeah, let me go back to the time when shift left was a thing, right? Still, it's a thing. I mean, a lot of security guys are still, but today we are talking about shifting down. So this is like a very recent things, So shifting left was all about having your security early in your dev life cycle and making sure things are addressed early so that you can save a lot of cost and effort when it goes to production. So, but what happened with that? Lot of tools and technologies to being became a sort of big thing for any organization, and it basically consumed a lot of resources. It consumed a lot of cost, and finally, what happened? It increased the effort of developers, which is the last thing one should do. Are you getting this? So shifting left has its own time, when the security was when we had to convince the people for security, then it came the shifting left. Now the time is for shifting down, where the it is said cognitive workload on the developers that we need to reduce. And that's where the shifting down approach is all about creating those platforms which are very strong, and that can sort of take most of the workload from the developers.
Can you explain cognitive workload a little bit for the audience?
So, see, as a developers, you are supposed to innovate. You're supposed to write code, innovate, think of logical things, and create the proper code. But if I start pushing security also on top of it, saying that hey, there are some 120 alerts being shown by the SAST tool, will you be able to fix it by a particular timeline? It becomes a cognitive workload. Similarly, secure coding training, all the good things what security guys tell to developers, all are becoming cognitive workload for the developers, and that's why the things will start moving towards shifting down, where the platforms are going to be stronger, take the maximum workload, and ease out the overall pressure which is created by security on the developers or DevOps teams. And that is the space where all these tools, what you said, AI powered, and this is possible through AI and LLM, where people are figuring out the ways where they can reduce this workload and make the life easy. Yeah. So AI and LLM powered tools, uh, whether it is SaaS, DAS, yeah, of course, there are uh, certain use cases which basically can make this tool smarter. Uh, we will talk more about this, but I'm just making a base for it that the things are moving towards shifting down, and the platforms are offering this different point in solutions, like how to reduce false positives, how to make sure that you are using the correct dependency, how to make sure that your dash tools are reducing false positive, and a clear set of checks which are being performed with some business context. So yeah, all that is happening, and as a team, I would say uh, identify what are the challenges you're facing. Based on that, there is a plethora of tools available, and this new age abstract tools are offering very good point in solution for different kind of problems. So yeah, that's a balance you need to strike based on your licensing cost, based on your bandwidth in hand, the skill set you have.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you also analyze what your cognitive workload is in that sense, and how much of that, in terms of features, particularly maybe some of these AI powered tools can handle at the platform level itself, so that it's not transferred to the developers eventually while they're doing the development. So that's a good starting point. Uh, so let's maybe flip this around. And since we've been talking about AI powered tools, and if we, for example, we are a team where we are at a level where we have been doing AppSec in a more ad hoc fashion, like we do some pen test sometime, we do some code review sometime, whenever it's feasible. And in some of us, we may also make it regular, depends on what level of maturity we are. Now we are thinking of having intelligence built into the software development pipelines and environment.
Yes.
So when we talk about building intelligence, where do we really start? Like I had few main things which become challenges for us in the traditional way of working. But I wanted to know from you first, like where do we start with respect to building intelligence, given that, of course, that we have DevOps in play already in our environments.
So yeah, so if you see the whole software supply chain or the full DevOps cycle, there are multiple places which are the which have a challenge statement everywhere. Like for example, SCA tools, right? So SCA tools, they throw a lot of vulnerabilities, and then now this talks are happening where there are solutions which are offering reachability analysis. They are saying, are you seriously using those dependency or not? If it is not, then there is no need to consider those alerts. So for the people who are looking for, make the overall thing smarter, I think the very first point they can start with making sure that the developers get the right education, they understand the vulnerabilities, they understand the vulnerable code, and also the AI powered solution, which basically can help them to fix the code timely and efficiently. that is that will save a lot of hours of developer hours. So that is something easy to adopt, because you just see there are two ways of doing it. One is like you use the closed source uh, models, and then you take the input from there and then give that intelligence to the developers. Another is like, if you have the bandwidth, you can sort of use some open source LLMs and then train with the data what you have in your enterprise or in your companies, and then create that. But I think that could be the starting point. Then from there you can work on your false positives, you can work on their dependency problems, you can work on build security, any kind of anomaly happening. So it's like multiple places in the software supply chain, starting from your coding to build to test to deployment. So all that has multiple problems, but I would say not to go behind AI for everything, but start with something very basic which has a bigger impact, and then reverse engineer from there, and then come to the places. Till you can also, like, you can build an IDE, you can have it in your developer IDE platform, have a plugin which can sort of get the intelligence from things. But yeah, again, it's different levels of maturity. So yeah.
So in terms of prioritization, maybe that is something I see as the initial part, right? Because there may be 100 different problem statements that you have. You may have recurring kind of issues as well. For example, false positive is more on the operational side of the tools that you may be using for SAST or DAST or other things. But you may have priorities with respect to what kind of vulnerabilities or what kind of areas that you want to look at. So is there a way of prioritizing this before we start solving for it using intelligence?
Yes. So that is one area where we have been working for last 1.5 years. So uh, once we get the business context of the applications which is under scan, and we also get the kind of vulnerabilities it is throwing, and what are the different technologies it is built on, and what is the overall coverage of different kind of vulnerabilities which is there, like whether how strong is the technology basically. So different kind of context if we supply, it is possible to train the models to bring some sort of prioritization to it. So you can like put in multiple parameters like CVSS, or which is powered by of course EPSS today, and you can also put some business context to it, like how critical business criticality it holds. Then what is the kind of support available to address to the problems, like for example how many developers are involved, how many security professionals are involved. So there could be multiple contexts which you can supply and come to a prioritized list of things to look at. So that really helps a lot, because throwing like hundreds and hundreds of issues to developers is like it's counterproductive. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, so there are some specific areas that that you will see do become may become priorities for many of us. So, for example, I was just talking about, I'll start with some specific things. Like, for example, false positives for all the traditional tools that we have in the area of application security, particularly. False positives are a big deal because they are huge in number.
Yeah.
And many times when you sit down to look at, is it really applicable? Is it really exploitable? You understand that it is not, those issues are not. And then they have already taken up a lot of developer time by then.
Yeah.
So, can we use intelligence, or how can we exactly use intelligence to deal with false positives?
Correct. So what we have done is like we used vulnerability data which was generated by our team, and we created some models which we start training with that vulnerability data. So it's the data of multiple scanners, multiple SaaS tools, multiple DAS tools, and then we found that there is fair level of reduction of false positive possible with this kind of approach. But every organization doesn't have that luxury to have access to that kind of data and create their own models, because it brings a lot of overheads. Like you should have a machine learning engineers with you to create that kind of thing. So I would suggest to better go for a third party AI, generative AI, where it can sort of walk through the code and sort of once you have put the findings there, it can sort of alert you saying that hey, there could be a false positive there. So that is one approach of doing it. But the proper way is the first way, which we try doing. And but of course, it takes a lot of effort from your side. There should be engineering team available to achieve that. At the same time, there is a cost involved. There is a infrastructure cost involved. So uh, that is there. So for the starting point, I think, especially with the level of SMBs or SMEs, I think you can rely on some third-party tools and third-party AI solutions for your positive filtering.